Hello there. James Orr, last chapter of Sidelights on Christian Doctrine, Eternity and Its Issues. He's now talking about the need for a wise reserve on the details of the Lord's coming. Keep in mind this is 1909. So again, as we said in our J.C. Ryle videos, if only Russell and the rest of the prophetic experts had listened to Ryle, and I could say the same of Orr, this need for wise reserve rather, he's manifested it throughout this book, but especially here on speculation about the details of the Lord's coming. He says, here numerous questions and difficulties emerge, into which it is impossible to enter at length in this brief study. It is interesting to notice that, in accordance with the state of the case just described, the creeds of the Church have always maintained a wise reserve on the details of the Lord's coming. They have announced the fact, but they have not presumed to define times and seasons or to settle details. Much has been always left to private Christian speculation on these subjects, and opinions among Christians have widely varied. One difficulty is that if we take the prevailing form of representation in the New Testament, we might reasonably infer that after a shorter or longer period in the world's development, during which both good and evil would ripen and reach a climax, a terrible anti-Christian apostasy, the germs of which were already present in the apostolic age, according to 1 John 2:18 and 4:3, a terrible apostasy would be revealed, the course of events would be suddenly terminated by the Lord's appearance, that is according to 2 Thessalonians 2 verse 8, carrying with it the resurrection of just and unjust, the final judgment, and the dissolution of the existing earth and heaven. On the other hand, if we turn to the book of Revelation, we find that in harmony with Old Testament prophecies and with hints in the words of Christ and his apostles, this book would seem to point, though not until after long delay and the experience of terrible conflicts, to a prolonged triumph, that is, 1,000 years of the kingdom of Christ in the world, the Millennium, as it is wont to be termed, during which the forces of evil will be restrained and the powers of good will be at their highest potency. This period is precluded or preluded by great judgments on the anti-Christian powers and by the resurrection of the martyred saints who reign along with Christ. Then is to come a new falling away and the final advent, resurrection and judgment. This all according to Revelation 20. How is this picture of the end of the present dispensation of things to be interpreted? Is the picture wholly symbolical, as the general character of the book might suggest? Is the crisis or world judgment which introduces the latter-day glory purely providential? Or does there shine through the picture the idea that it will be attended by visible, supernatural attestations of Christ's presence and power? Is the reign of the saints with Christ purely spiritual, or is there suggested the idea of a literal first resurrection of the martyrs and faithful? These questions, note this, I must leave to be answered by others. My own opinion is that the distinction between symbol and outward fact must remain more or less an uncertainty till the time itself shall declare it. There is in itself no contradiction in supposing that what, from the point of prophetic intuition, as in the Old Testament, is pictured as one event, may resolve itself on nearer survey into a series of events, or successive stages of one event, just as stars which to the naked eye appear single are resolved by the telescope into binary stars, two stars in inseparable relation. But this, I would confess, that the idea of a latter day of glory on this earth of ours, a period of Sabbath rest and realization of righteousness, has a charm to my mind, and seems to me to have its roots in so much Old Testament prediction that I cannot willingly forego it. Nor can I doubt that, if such a happy day dawns for our world, it will be a period of open vision and of actual intercommunion between heaven and earth, such as we now know nothing of. A period that brings back those days which, just because of their inconformity to our present experience, we are apt to think of as left behind, or to relegate to an age of fancy, the days of Eden and the patriarchs, when God was near to men and communed with them. a period when the gates of intercourse with heaven will be reopened, and the angels of God will be seen ascending and descending, as in Jacob's vision of Genesis 28, around verse 12. But now, upon the Son of Man, according to John 1:51. That is the angels descending upon the Son of Man. But nothing earthly endures, and even that blessed time, if I have thought upon it rightly, is not the end. There is a relapse, Revelation 20, verses 7 to 9, a new crisis, and last of all, the final decisive appearing of the Lord, his appearing in his glory, and in the glory of his Father, with the holy angels. Matthew 16:27, 25:31, and Mark 8:38. Put these scriptures in the description. Then shall come about the dissolution of all earthly things, the resurrection of the dead, the great white throne of final judgment. It is the end-all of earthly affairs. Time is finished. Thereafter, eternity rolls its unending course. I'm so impressed by the modesty of James Orr, who was one of the greatest Christian thinkers of the last century, and yet here confesses he cannot resolve all of the tensions of Scripture. And yet his heart obviously goes in the direction of seeing the Old Testament prophecies fulfilled about new heavens and a new earth. Yet where there is a communion between heaven and earth at the same time. Next time, the nature of the resurrection. And I'll link Finished Mystery. As Orr was writing this and releasing this book just before World War I. At the same time, during World War I, the Watchtower was consolidating its gospel and putting it in a book called The Finished Mystery, where they go into far greater detail in embarrassing terms if you read that book today. Hilarious, really, much of it, but nevertheless so sad, because it illustrates, does the finished mystery, the tangle that men create when minds untaught in Scripture and untaught in the original languages, uncaring about context, when such minds speculate on things of the future, terrible things happen. So we'll put that link to the finished mystery and the other revelation materials that link to it on your screen now. Next time, the nature of the resurrection.